My name is Carol Gordon, and I'm the project manager for BookNet Canada's online catalog project, CataList. We've had quite a busy 12 months in the CataList project. We've had 7 feature releases in that time span, and we have another one ready to go, as Pam was saying, in about the next week. So today what I wanted to do is just take you through a quick recap of the major features that we've released and show you a bit about how to use those. And then we're going to finish up with a preview of the new feature, the preview on the reading copy request tool, and then a brief look at what we have coming up following that. So we have a lot to cover in a pretty short amount of time, so I'm just going to jump right in. One of the first features that we rolled out in the last year at the request of our user group was a search within catalog feature. So in any catalog view, you can now start simply entering your text, and you'll start seeing matches on titles, authors, or ISBNs returning dynamically. So clicking or tapping on any of those matches will take you directly into the selected title in the catalog, and it'll save you time from scrolling or paging through to the catalogs to find what you need. If there are no matches returned for your search terms in the catalog, within the catalog that you're looking at, the system will then ask you if you want to search across catalogs for other matches. So selecting this option will run a keyword search on all CataList titles for the search terms that you've entered. Another often requested feature that we rolled out earlier this year was the ability to add titles to custom catalogs from any catalog or title view. So previously you needed to have a list of ISBNs that you could create your custom catalog from. So now, if you're logged into CataList, you will see an Add to Catalog button on all of the pages. So simply clicking the Add to Catalog button will allow you to send a title to any one of your custom catalogs. So you can add to an existing custom catalog or create a new one. This feature will allow reps to build custom catalogs for buyers as they're going through their seasonal catalogs, or buyers can create lists of books as they are reviewing catalogs either on their own or with a rep. So for instance, if they want to track books that they might want to promote in store or note for possible inclusion in newsletters, or if they just want to maintain a list of books that fit particular themes of interest for their business. You can also select titles from the search results page and send those using the selection checkboxes that are over to the left of the catalog covers, and then send the titles that you have selected into a custom catalog using that Add to Catalog button, which here is at the top right of the page. You can also export straight out of the system, take your selected titles and export them straight out of the system into an Excel file, or for the libraries, to a brief MARC record export. Previous editions. So this year we've started some work on improvements to handling for comparable titles. So the first thing we did was we started by breaking out the previous edition ISBNs from the main group of comp titles. They used to all be included in the same grouping. And we've prioritized those in the page display and in the sales data report that's available for users of both CataList and sales data. So the previous editions can be supplied to CataList in a number of ways. So you can enter and lock the ISBNs in the related products section of the edit title page. You can submit the previous edition ISBN using the relation code 03 replaces in your Onyx file. Or you can supply the details in a text file that can be sideloaded to the CataList FTP. So we do expect that we'll be continuing to work on the comparable title elements in CataList this year. So look for more improvements to this comp title handling and the integration of sales data, as Neha mentioned, and improvements to the reporting of the sales data report within CataList. Next up, we added some functionality to the store and branch management portion of the order module for the retailers and the libraries. So we'll use a Gordon Corman example, and we'll say, for example, if Bruno and Boots were running the McDonald Hall Library, and Bruno wanted Boots to be able to use CataList to research new titles and place votes for the Lone Stars, but the program, which Pam just talked about in detail. But if Bruno doesn't want Boots to be able to access the ordering function in CataList, Then Bruno can set up the account so that only approved personnel can access the ordering functions. So this can be managed at a branch-by-branch level for the libraries and a store-by-store level for the retailers. We also added some handling for store IDs and fund codes, which will help enable us to do more POS and ILS integrations for order exports as we move ahead. So saving the changes updates the authorized buyers list for the location being edited. So as you can see, now Bruno is the only authorized buyer for the McDonald Hall Library, though multiple buyers can be assigned to each location. In more access limitation news, we also rolled out a new catalog status this year, and this was a pretty major feature. So in addition to the draft catalogs, when you start out building your catalogs, they can only be viewed by other people in your own account. And the published catalogs, which could be viewed by anyone, whether you're logged into CataList or not, we've added now a trade-only status. So the new trade-only status allows publishers to release catalogs early to only those account types that need access to make purchasing decisions. So before title information would typically be released to media or consumers. So this feature also removes the data requirements for titles that were previously impeding the early release of partial content in catalogs. And it also allows the reps to create and share their custom catalogs earlier in the process. So who can see trade-only catalogs? So viewers must be logged into CataList, obviously. And they must belong to one of the trade account types, so retailers, libraries, sales agents, and wholesalers. So essentially, these are the book trade staff that need information well in advance in order to generate sales or to make purchasing and promotion plans and decisions. So how do you release a catalog to the trade only? So the initial part of the process is exactly the same. You build your draft catalog. When it's ready to release, you're going to go to the Publish page the same way that you have done in the past and click the Publish Now button. When you click the Publish button, you'll see an extra option in the dialog box, the checkbox to release to the book trade only. So if you want to just leave this checkbox unselected, publish your catalog fully right now, just leave the box unselected and click OK, and that releases your catalog as it always has done. It'll be fully published and available for anyone to view. If you do want to limit your release for a time to only the book trade, you can select the checkbox. CataList displays a new prompt, and it will to ask you for a public release date. So this allows you to just set a public release date and forget it. The CataList will automatically push the catalog to a fully published status on the date that you've chosen. You can come back to the publish screen. You can publish at any time. You can change this date if you need to do that. But this just allows you to set it and not have to come back and look at this again. So what do the trade-only catalogs look like? So when viewing the trade-only catalogs or any custom catalogs that contain trade-only titles, retailers, libraries, wholesalers, they all see a seamless view of the catalog. The trade-only catalogs, titles, as long as they are logged in, look exactly like any other title. For sales reps, if you're creating custom catalogs and you include in your custom catalog a title that is released to the trade only, we will flag those titles so that you're aware that the people that you're sharing your catalog with will either need to be logged into CataList and will need to have access to see the title. We don't limit you from sharing them, but if you do share them to someone that does not have access to see the trade-only catalogs, oh, I don't have the right screen. We have a trade-only blocker that blocks this view, so you would actually see a coming soon placeholder. And I'll correct that when we post the slides. So the seasonal catalog, you can view everything else in the catalog, but you won't be able to access that single title. Once the catalogs are published live, your trade-only catalogs move to the published status. All of the custom catalogs will automatically update, and those titles will be visible within the context of the custom catalogs. And so now we're going to move ahead to previewing some of the upcoming work that we are looking at doing. So this piece, the advanced reading copy request, is pretty well ready to go. We do expect that to be out within the next week. And as Pam mentioned, this is built in order to further support the Lone Stars partnership, but not only for the libraries, but also to enable this conversation with the retailers, media, and other account types as needed. So CataList sees the role here as just enabling this conversation between the readers and the reps through the use of a request form that's triggered through the title or catalog views and is based on permissions that are set by the publisher. So account managers in publisher accounts will be able to opt into the reading copy request tool on their company settings page. So you can limit the request form to be triggered only on titles in specific categories. And you can set permissions for different segments of the CataList viewership, so libraries, retailers, and so forth. You can check off the ones that you do want to allow requests from. And then different contacts at your company can be provided based on the account type of the requester. In order to make a request then, readers must be logged into CataList. They must be in an account type that's been enabled by the publisher. The titles must have a publication date in the future, and they must be included in the top-level categories also enabled by the publishers. If all of these conditions are met, then the reader will see that Read Me button on title and catalog pages in CataList. Clicking the Read Me button opens the list of available options for reading this particular title, including the link to NetGalley if eGalleys are currently available through that service. Titles in NetGalley will always display the Read Me button, regardless of whether or not the publisher has enabled the direct request option. But if the publisher has requested the direct reading copy request, then the option to request that directly from the publisher will also display here. Selecting the Request from Publisher option opens the form where requesters can supply their contact information and any other details such as their preferred reading format. The system remembers address and job title information to minimize rekeying, and an optional text box allows the requesters to supply some additional supporting information that might convince a publisher to send out an ARC. The form finishes just with a statement to clarify that reading copy provision is based on availability and completely subject to publisher discretion. Submitting the request will generate an email to the publisher-provided contact that was set up on the company settings page, and it will CC the requester. So from this point, the publisher contact can take over the correspondence. Provision of reading copies is completely up to you, and how you send them out is up to you guys as well. At this point, CataList's role is really fulfilled. We've just enabled that request. So if the requester, though, attempts to re-request the same title, we do track that, and we will advise the requester that the request was already sent. We will provide the date and contact information that the original request was sent. Also in the next release that we are planning for next week, we will have the first of our order exports ready to go. So we're very pleased to announce that the order export is moving ahead. So we released in the last year the ability to export a brief MARC record for the library. So anyone in the library type accounts can export any catalog or search results to that MARC export. We now have implemented a MARC biblio and a MARC order export. So you can optionally now choose to export the order quantities, which includes the branch fund codes and the branch IDs from the work that we did in the previous year. So anyone can actually pull this order export. Any of the libraries can pull the order export, but it is structured to meet the Polaris ILS specification. So the export includes that branch level order quantity, the fund codes, and the basic bibliographic data record. So there's already some additional work going on other exports, but this infrastructure exists now to support any number of different export formats, and we do plan to extend that functionality to other ILS and POS systems. And so looking ahead, we're going to do this very quickly. Look down the road, we've got some ongoing work on the export integrations, comp title and sales data reporting improvements that I mentioned a bit earlier. We're also working on a strategy for improving handling on drop-in titles. This is a huge challenge for the industry, and CataList represents a really unique opportunity to help manage the volume of titles and the short timelines associated with the late editions. So watch for some technical developments and reporting functions to help manage drop-ins, as well as some best practices for adding and identifying drop-in titles in CataList. We're also working on a visual design update, and we have some ongoing usability improvements based on feedback from our users, including plans for some responsive design elements for those of you that are using tablets. So how can you keep up with our new features as they are released? That's a lot of information that I've just thrown at you in a few short minutes. So how do you find information on new things? We communicate it in a number of ways. We always post on the CataList homepage when new features are released. We link out to our What's New in CataList page. That link goes to our help space with step-by-step instructions on all of the newest features. And you can also find details on previous releases there. Follow the BookNet Canada blog for some CataList-specific tips, as well as general information about changes to standards and other industry-related information that can impact CataList and other BookNet products, like our YA BISAC codes. And sign up for the CataList newsletter to get timely information on new features, new partnerships, tips and tricks for using CataList, and more. And that's it. Thank you very much.